All right, well, welcome everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandy.
And we welcome you to this edition of Walking in Spirit of Truth. We're here today just to hit some things and some highlights. Hey, also, I want to just mention this real quick. I mentioned it on Shabbat. Some people don't pick us up on Shabbat during our messages, but we do have a Torah portion on Shabbat at 12 noon Central, and we would love for you to join us there. We follow that. That's from 12 to 2 Central. Then at 3, we have a time of praise, worship, and ministry. And then we have another part to that same service that we kind of break into a new feed with a message meant to inspire, encourage, and build up the body of Messiah. We would love for you to join us there on Shabbats and just spend the day with us. Also, I want to say this. If you have been blessed by this ministry of Life of Worship Ministries, we would love for you to partner with us. We need prayer partners. We need financial partners. And we are right now in great need at Life of Worship. And we would love for you, some of you that have been listening to us for a long time, have never, maybe you don't give to a ministries anywhere. Maybe
not to this one.
Maybe you haven't given to this ministry, or maybe you're looking for a new place to sow some good seed. Well, Life of Worship Ministries is a really good place for you to join up and be part of that financially, prayer-wise, and be a supporter of ours. We would love to have you part of our family.
Not only love, but we need you. We work together, and we can't do it without your partnership.
That's right. So I'm going to pop up if you say, hey, you know what? I'd like to give. How do I do that? I'll stick that on the screen here momentarily. And that way you can go to our website, click the donate button, and you'll be able to give that way. So, all right. Well, that's all the housekeeping things that I want to go over.
I'll do that since you're busy.
All right. So all right. So a major event just took place over the weekend in England. Yeah, can anybody guess what happened on May the 6th of 2023? There was a huge event for the history boards, and that is the coronation of King Charles III. Now, from this point forward, I'm going to use the name KC3, just so everybody knows that's what that means, because I want to do everything we can to be able to keep this up on the network. We want to keep it on the network. We want to keep it on our YouTube channel here at Life of Worship Ministries on YouTube, and so that people can hear this message. And so we're going to, if we have to use some little terms that get by the algorithms, we're going to do that as well. So yeah, big event that took place, and I want to hit some of the highlights of some things that I think is very important for us to look at, not just simply what happened physically and some of the signs and telltale signs of all that, but also maybe some things spiritually that we need to be looking at. So first off, let's start out with looking at some things in regards to Yeshua when he confronts Hasatan tries to so-called tempt him after he's been out in the wilderness for 40 days. So let's go to the passage over Matthew chapter 4, and let's establish some things, establish some truths. And it says, then Yeshua was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by Hasatan. And after he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he then became hungry. And the tempter came and said to him, if you are the Son of Man, command that these stones become bread. But he answered and he said, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yah. Then the devil took him into the holy city, and he had him stand on the pinnacle of the temple. And he said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will give his angels charge concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. Yeshua said to him, on the other hand, it is written, you shall not put Yahweh, your Elohim, to the test. Again, verse 8, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things will I give you if you fall down and worship me. And Yeshua said to him, be gone, Hasatan, for it is written, you shall worship Yahweh, your Elohim, and serve him only. Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came down and began to minister to him. Okay, why do I say that? because I think one of the things that we're really good about here in those that pursue the Hebraic heritage is we're really good about studying out the word. We're right now at the very end of Vayikra, of Leviticus, and the Torah portions, and yet here in this scripture that I just read, we have quotes from the Torah that Yeshua used. And I want to say this. I want to ask you this question. Are we very good about going back to the Torah to be able to wield the word like Yeshua wielded it, used it? All right. Okay. It's a sword, right? And it's a sword by which can do great harm or great benefit for the kingdom. Okay. Here's the next thing I want us to say. What did Yeshua show us? First off, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. What does that mean? Yeshua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That is a Hebrew metaphor for Torah. Yeshua said, I'm the Torah. And we know, I'm just to redefine it. So those that may be listening, and you've never heard this before, Torah means what? Instructions. The instructions are the way, the truth, and the life. Yeshua is the embodiment of it. So when he comes out and quotes the embodiment of the way, the truth, and the life, which came from scripture as he confronted Hasatan, what is that an example for us? Think about that. Because what I am about ready to talk about is the spirit of Antichrist.
Anti-Messiah.
The anti-Messiah spirit that is upon us in this generation.
In many places.
So, and why do I bring that up? Because I talked to you about KC3, right, earlier. So let's connect the dots. And because could this coronation that took place over the weekend be something that's really connected to this release of the spirit of deception through a spirit of anti-Messiah through the nations? And how will that affect us? What does it look like? Are there dots to connect? Can we cross the lines? Well, one of the things that we see this confrontation with Yeshua in the wilderness is he uses the word, and what does Hasatan do? He says, if you'll just bow down to me, I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. I'll give you these kingdoms. And Yeshua, of course, rightly said that the word of God says that we are to worship the Lord, our Yahweh, your Elohim, and serve him only. Okay, so there's that connection. But when over in John 10:10, when Yeshua said that I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father by me, then we have another side, and it says the thief, right there before Yeshua said that, the thief has come to kill, steal, and destroy. Well, what has the thief been doing in the nations and the kingdoms of this world? Has he not been stealing powers, authority from the nations through delusions and deceptions? Have we not been witnessing that over the last several years, where people have willingly given up their particular rights in order to have safety, to have freedom, to have protection? Say, well, if I do this thing and get a particular thing in my arm, then I will be able to have the freedom to travel, to go beyond the borders, to be able to go to the stores, congregate with people I want to congregate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are these not freedoms that have been stolen? The thief has come to kill, steal, and destroy. What has happened? There have been death rates that have skyrocketed, and because of the connection with all these venomous things that have been taking place. Because Hasatan, is he not the original serpent?
Mm-hmm. The original, yes.
Is he not the original deceiver in the garden? And ultimately,
the injector. Is he not the original one who injects poison?
Injects poisons, the toxins of deceptions, the toxins of to kill, steal, and destroy. He has been murdering freedom, murdering free thought, murdering freedom of speech, murdering those people, assassinating character in order to
and people.
Well, first off, assassinating character of those who have spoken out against the agenda, and also murdering people that have even aligned themselves through deception, through the delusion, with his particular move of power. Now, what are these moves of power? What have we seen within the culture? We have a couple different things that have taken place in the culture, and there's a particular organization out of Davos, Switzerland. They have their annual meeting out of there. Everybody should know what I mean when I talk about Davos, Switzerland. And their leader has basically, for years, talked about this thing called the Great Reset. And they are literally wanting to say that we will own nothing and be happy. They talk about they have brought about the culture wars. They have, in order to divide and conquer, they have attacked our health and saying that everybody must comply. They've used the United Nations World Health Organization in order to drive these things home. They have used billionaires to be the spokesman and to bring about propaganda to get people to comply with their methods. They have brought about they have talked about climate change and how the world must give up carbon in so many different uses of it, and use clean energy and not eat certain types of foods and actually eat foods that are not healthy for you.
But even in that, they brought death to many things that Yah's given us charge over to remove food supply.
Right.
In the midst of that,
Yeah.
with that as an excuse and doing
they unmentionable things and just horrible things, and yet on top of that, we like what we're seeing in America. We have seen over 120, was it 129 food distribution and manufacturing facilities burned in the last couple years. We've seen a lot of different things where now they say you can't eat cows because we got to get rid of cows because they produce methane gas. They have said that that if not everybody participates in that thing that goes into the arm, then we're just going to put it into the food supply. And in fact,
they are doing that.
And okay, why am I bringing up all these things? We can talk about all of these different aspects. We were even talking about wars that just seem to be unjust, and it seemed like there's been a lot of provocation to bring nations into war. Why? What's happening? What's going on? Well, in the coronation of KC3 over the weekend, it just so happens that genetically modified foods, the green agenda, the World Health Organization agenda, all of these things that KC3 is actually in full support of. In fact, he had said in a message to a group of people, I won't say the group that he was listening to, but he was speaking to, but he said that all of the nations, all the people of the world should pay a tax so that they can have that they should pay a tax so that there could be a world government and an army that could be fully financed throughout the world. Well, I mean, so what do all these things look like? The father of KC3 actually said if he died, he would like to be reincarnated as a virus in order to remove populations from the world. I mean, this is the senator's type of agenda that is going on, that this person who has just been coronated in England now has said that this is what he wants. This is his heritage. And if you look at even his bloodline goes all the way back to some very horrific people in history. Okay.
But it also goes back to
There you go, Bob. You're
Judah.
exactly right. You're exactly right. There is, and then there is a preservation, as Sandy just said, a preservation of what they say is a link to the throne of David, and therefore King David, and therefore they feel like they are the rightful heirs of that throne, and they have intermarried and intermixed within all of this. Now, what is this next thing that I'm about to talk about? This has been said by a couple of people that I was listening to earlier today. Thought this was very interesting. A coronation of deception. And why was that said? Is that because we're really now, when we're talking about the spiritual level, and we're talking about the what did Yeshua do when he was confronted with Hasatan? Hasatan was trying to deceive him in order that Yeshua would bow his knee to Hasatan and give allegiance to him. This coronation that just took place has been preceded by the workings of multiple covens, that is, covens of witches around the world, to lay spiritually down a foundation by which this kingdom will be built, the kingdom of KC3. When he also said in his prayer and his own decree is that he will be known as the protector of faiths, plural, faiths, not the faith. Now, if you go back and you look at the Queen of England, she was both the head as Majesty of England and the head of the Church of England. Well, that is also the position and the role by which KC3 now steps into. But she held, I know people have different thoughts regarding Queen Elizabeth II, but one of the things that she did and she upheld was the Christian foundation of England, and that has been her stated position. This is not the stated position of KC3, but rather what England was known for years and years and years, and even out of was it in 1902? I think it was in 1902 in the Welsh Revival. I mean, that's what led to the Azusa Street Revival in 1906, and which brought outpouring of the Holy Spirit throughout the world. So think about this. He is now saying he's the defender of faiths. Well, what happened when England, and I have to give some credence over to Dr. Pigeon, he talked about this. What did Britain do in the 1800s? Probably go back to 1700s as well. They established their foothold, their toehold in many nations around the world. And it made England very, very wealthy. It was out of that the original missionary movements actually began. And England began to send missionaries into all the different places that they had conquered, so to speak. And however, through the East Indies Trading Company and the Hudson Bay Company, those companies were mercenaries, and they would go in and they'd slaughter people and they destroy people, and people are involved in those companies became very, very rich. That's why we have some of these very, very beautiful mansions that are in England. Why? Because they earned all their money taking the resources from those populations in the world, from India and Africa and all the different places they colonized. Well, what happened? They brought all that money back home. They built these mansions and these properties, and their descendants now, it's very difficult for them to even maintain them. But they are very ornate, and they have been made to last for years. That's how you know how well built these things are and how expensive they were. And so what has it led to today? Well, they called all of these countries the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth. And there were treaties that were made so that the populations of those nations, if they so desired, they could migrate to England. And we have seen an uninhibited migration into England by various people and by various faiths. They just brought their faiths with them. Now, how do we know that this is taking place? Because what used to be back in the 70s and 80s, when I used to live in Norway and was able to visit England, you could actually see and go to London. You could go to different parts of England, and there was a very strong Christian ethics there. But since then, with the open doors and these open borders, we have seen, and this is happening in this nation as well, people from multiple backgrounds, multiple faiths came in not wanting to assimilate with Great Britain or with England, but they came in to assimilate, and not to assimilate, but to just come and bring their own cultures with them, their own faiths. And so why does King Charles say he is the defender of faiths? Because there are so many in there, because they didn't maintain and establish some rules when the people migrated. Then that became that has become a big issue. And I think Dr. Pigeon said this, and I think he's very right in this. If they call it diversity, but what does diversity do? It brings all these different varying and differing opinions in. And when you bring in varying and differing opinions, it means that the hosting opinion now has become watered down, and one of those opinions is going to attempt to establish itself over the original opinion or faith, whatever you want to say, and establish itself and get rid of all of the others. Yes, Terry, it's mixture, but it's ultimately for the rise of this anti-Messiah spirit to rule and reign. Now, we have seen this happen with Rome. Rome has, if we go back all the way back in the history of Rome, and you go back to Constantine, what did he do, and how did he conquer, and how did he unite all of the tribes, the different countries, the nations, the cultures? Well, he looked at them all, and he saw that many of them had very similar things that they shared. So he put them all under one banner and called it a universal faith. Catholic means universal. And so Roman Catholicism was born, and they took all those different statues, and they said, yeah, we used to call this statue this and that statue this, or this statue by different names. Now we're going to put it all under one, same statue, but we're all going to name, this is Jesus, this is Mary, this is Peter, this is Paul, whatever. And they began to rename the statues. But all of the different holy days of the nations and the mixtures of those varying religions, they just, I like to say, sprinkled holy water on it and Christianized them, because the people are already used to worshiping on those days. And as a result, they called them Christian holidays, but the people from the various nations said, those are the days that we worship, call it by a different name, whatever, we're still worshiping the same thing. That's it in a nutshell. KC3 is now the defender of faiths, the defender of all faiths. Now, it was said that this was a coronation of deception. We've talked about all of these different elements, from climate change to food to even financing and monetary, one world currency. We've talked, there's the issues of food supply. We're talking about common health issues. We have talked about a unification of all these under one umbrella and one controlling figure. And KC3 says, I stand behind every one of these. And basically he has said that I'm the one who's going to be the uniter for all of humanity to come under this umbrella. So what does this mean? The power of the United Kingdom still has influence over all of the nations that were part of the Commonwealth. So not only do we have Great Britain itself and England, we have Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and we have the immediate influence right there. We also have the tentacles attached to New Zealand and Australia. There's tentacles that still go into South Africa, even though they're stated independence, as well as to Kenya and to the Caribbean islands. Many of them still have all of these parts and all of these pieces.
Well,
Connections.
Yeah. But we also have to remember that the United States basically, when we wanted funding, we sold ourselves back to the UK, sold ourselves back to England. It really started not long after our own independence, by the late 1800s. This is not, we are really, if you go back and you look, we're owned by England.
And what the United States is, what's happened.
We're owned, guys.
Yeah. So we can take this back all the way to after World War II, and in fact, I forgot to look this up, and maybe you might be able to find it. After World War II, I believe that's when Queen Elizabeth was sworn in.
Okay.
Her rule is about 70 years. I don't remember what date she was actually sworn in on, but it was also back in the 1951 or 52. The United Nations. No, NATO was formed. United Nations was formed in 1945, Israel 1948, NATO was formed in 1950 to 52, something like that. And so we've heard about the 70 years of Daniel. For 70 years, England basically has had a tremendous time of peace and prosperity. Relatively, they've had low housing costs, low energy costs, low food costs. They've had much of their supplies or have been provided for them has been at reasonable prices until the end of that 70 years of Queen Elizabeth. So she took, what's it say?
February 6, 1952.
1952. So what is...
Well, her coronation took place more than a year later.
Okay.
After the mourning period.
After the mourning period. So
So officially June 2nd, 1953.
When she was coronated. Well, guess what? 70 years. That's it. She was 70. 70s.
So officially, after the year mourning, it was the June 2nd, 1953. And that, guess what? It's 70 years later.
70 years later. And here there's a new crown. And after 70 years.
And we're in 2023.
So. Now we're in 2023. And so what has happened over the last 2 years in England, and especially upon her passing, they have seen skyrocketing energy costs. I mean, people are, deciding, do they pay their electric bill or do they eat? I mean, do they pay their housing or do they eat? I mean, these are decisions these people are having to make over there because of skyrocketing energy. And they've got the North Sea oil. And yet they're, because of the squeeze of climate change on using those type of fuels, they're having to rely on solar energy and windmill energy and turbine energy. They don't they don't have hydroelectric energy, I don't think, in England. So skyrocketing energy prices. They've had inflation, just like we've seen it here in America, of food. They've had lockdowns. They've had loss of freedoms. All these different things have taken place, and what it's a setup now for KC3. Just think, at the end of 70 years. Now, I want to say this too. Now, Queen Elizabeth passed away, I believe it was on September 19th, 2022. I want to ask you a question. Do you find this interesting, Sandy, that it was 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days from the time that Queen Elizabeth died that King, or KC3, was coronated? Do you think there's any gematria that the dark side would be using?
Well, I don't know what gematria the dark side uses, but that is a very interesting thought because of the time. But yet there's in the kingdom of Yah, there are no coincidences. So wouldn't the kingdom of Hasatan be the same?
Yeah, yeah. It was the day, and then of all different things, May the 6th. Terry said September the 9th, 2020. No, that's not when she passed. She passed away last fall, 2022. So let's now look at something else. May the 6th. Why was May the 6th chosen? Why did it happen to be 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days? Did Queen Elizabeth die based on natural causes? Was her death accelerated, or the announcement of her death happened to be?
We will never know.
But what was May the 6th? May the 6th is May Day. May Day. Why? What is the significance of May Day? May Day is a major pagan fertility day. It is connected with Gaia worship, which is earth worship, and a number of other pagan entities. Now, let's put something else in there that's also kind of interesting. It was in the Commonwealth, Commonwealth Games last summer. Do you remember those? The Commonwealth Games? And KC3, before he was KC3, came out and spoke in the opening ceremonies. And in those opening ceremonies, what was the big presentation? It was the big, massive bull god with the fiery eyes, the image of Molech. And it was about bowing down to Molech. Isn't that very interesting? And so now we've come full course that May the 6th, May Day, and its relation to Gaia worship, its relationship to Baal worship, and which is connected, and another name of Baal worship is Molech worship. And isn't it interesting that that would be the day of his coronation? Now, here's something also that's very, very interesting. And that is that there is a part of the coronation ceremony that is not open to the public. And what happened is KC3 and the small party of doing the crowning went behind a veil, and in order to complete the coronation. Nobody in the public was allowed to see that. Nobody knows what happens behind that veil. And I want to ask you something, is what is held in secret? And I'm going to tell you this, I was part of a fraternity back in college. Yes, I've renounced that, or, being connected to that organization and all of that. But fraternities do this, and what else do the Masons, the Freemasons do this? Other secret organizations do this. And what do? They have certain things done in secrecy. They do things behind veils. What could be done behind a veil, possibly?
By the way, May Day is always on the 1st of May.
1st of May?
Yep.
Okay. All right. There was something that's connected with May the 6th. So
I'll look at it.
And
but it's still just like these other things. It's still, there's
very significant. Okay. So moving right along then is 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days. All right. But so all of these different things have taken place on the bulletin or the brochure of the announcement. We also see a couple things that took place, and that is a connection between the seal of KC3 and the House of Windsor, and the seal of Camilla, who is now Queen Camilla. She was supposed to be the queen consort, but now they skipped the consort. Now she was coronated, crowned Queen of England to sit next to Charles. But at the bottom of the program, what did it show? It showed the symbol for Gaia worship. Now, as we're looking at and we're connecting the dots, what is this coronation? It was a coronation of deception. what people are seeing as just a protocol and a procedure of royalty, and the procedures of the royalty of England, is possibly something that is much greater than we have anticipated. And some that have been watching it very closely because they've been watching what the witches' covens have been doing and laying a foundation, because they want to lay a foundation of delusion and deception in order to elevate the position of KC3. And because of this dark connections, I'm just going to say that in my opinion, and that this has really opened up the door, and shall we say, behind the veil, that which was hidden is that which is connected with the demonic. Now, what do you mean by the demonic? Let me go over to Ephesians chapter 6, because it's beyond just the demonic itself. We're talking about powers and principalities and rulers of this dark world. And in Ephesians 6:11, put on the full armor of God that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. And therefore take up the full armor of God. Now, why? Why does it say that? It's talking about powers and principalities and rulers of this dark world. What type of agenda have we been watching and paying attention to now that 70 years of Babylon is over? 70 years of Babylon is over. It's been, we saw the end of the power of the strength of NATO when the United States and England and several other nations pulled out of Afghanistan. They're trying to influence and flex their muscles against Russia, which I believe is going to come to naught, except to worse issues. We see the end of the reign of a queen who reigned for 70 years during that exact same time period. And we also saw that at the end of it was during the year 2017, 70 years of Israel. All of these 70s have lined up, and now things are being set up in the world for this reign of the anti-Messiah. Now, what does the anti-Messiah need? The anti-Messiah needs a body, a person. So the powers, the principalities, the rulers of this dark world rule and reign through individuals. They need to embody individuals. Oh, that's a big jump. No, it's not a big jump. They need embodiment to exert influence over mankind. What type of power and influence have we seen exerted over mankind in the last 2 to 3 years? What have we seen? We've seen the attack upon average people through medical, through science, through food, through money, through governments that are void of any type of biblical faith and heritage. I mean, think about this. Right now in England, they have said, those that are from England have said, there is the government of England now, with the monarchy of KC3, the parliament, and the what was the other part? The parliament, the monarchy, and the church of England are void of biblical faith. Why? Because the Church of England abdicated its rights and its responsibilities when it embraced killing people, and they raised up a particular flag that has rainbow colors on it and embraced that. In fact, they have embraced multiple faiths and multiple lifestyles. So they abdicated their right, spiritual right. So now there's a 3-chord what do they call it? 3-strand cord that is not easily broken over England. Now that influence has now been sealed. What do they need? They need an embodiment of one who is going to take up the position of influence on the throne of England, that has the ability to influence the Parliament, and who is also the head of the Church of England, having no biblical foundation. Think about that. So what could have happened behind the veil? Could it have been the completion of the empowerment of that principality to begin to rule and reign, to exert that influence? And I mentioned this the other day, I think, on Let Us Reason Together. Maybe it's behind the scenes, but how that influence now will begin in the British Isles. It will begin to send its tentacles out to the Commonwealth of England, to the Caribbean, to the who are all the different islands of England, the Bahamas and the Bermudas and the Jamaicas and all these other different islands, all of the different places around the world where they've had influence, and now they will begin to inject the power of this principality and this anti-Messiah agenda, which will continue to spread.
See, that takes me back to something Susan Hookie had sent out, that said, because of the tentacles, because it's the mother or the country that has had the influence over so many nations, that it is Babylon. We are a daughter.
That it is Babylon.
And remember, I told you about that she sent out that article. I
saw that article.
Yeah.
I didn't have a chance to finish it.
Yeah, and
I'm glad you brought that up.
Because what you just said, the tentacles that reach literally around the world, even into this nation.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought there, because it's almost like this mother inserting this poison to every place that it's ever touched, which is all around the world.
No, it's really good, because remember what they said about England is that the sun never
sets. Yes, the sun never sets
on England. So because of its influence from Hong Kong. Of course, they've given up Hong Kong back. That they lost that lease. They went back to China, but that influence from every nation.
But it still has influenced it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're putting these pieces together. Well, what do you say about these principalities? Can a principality embody a person?
Okay, we know demons embody people, but there are also principalities and things that are. It's about a hierarchy, because the demonic kingdom, which is much bigger than demons and stuff, does have layers of authority. Just like I taught on when we try to remove the powers over a city or a country or a nation, that is not our authority. And so we've got to, it depends on how you want to name them, because different versions of scripture call them different names in their levels.
Mm-hmm.
But we personally, our personal influence is towards the demonic and things that take over families and things like that. So can a principality, which normally I would say that's over cities and nations and et cetera, can it inhabit a person? Demonic can inhabit a person because they're disembodied Nephilim. So,
yeah. So one of the ways that we can look at is this. What happened in Israel when Elijah went to Mount Carmel and confronted the prophets of Baal?
What are you asking? There's a lot that happened.
So in other words, how did those prophets of Baal even get there and get to the position they were in? Is because of Jezebel.
They had authority through Jezebel.
Right.
They were there as they destroyed pretty much every other prophet.
Right. So what did she do? She brought in her religion and empowered those prophets to deceive, and to bring about a new religious power and authority over Israel. When Elijah destroyed the prophets of Baal, the power was broken. That's why Jezebel went into such a rage. She lost her power and influence from that point forward. And you can read it in Kings that from that point forward, she had no more authority. She sent in a rage a decree to kill Elijah. That's why he took off. But from that point on, she didn't have any strength. She had no authority. She could not influence like she had
did
before.
not have the bodies. She still was
She was
overcome with the demonic. But she did not have the influence anymore because hands and feet were removed.
Yeah.
Now, we do know that
those tentacles were removed.
We do know that anti-Messiah, Hasatan himself, will envelop and be part of it. He will come in. It won't just be demonic.
Mm-hmm.
It will be Hasatan himself.
Yeah. So we have a very, very strong influence in that we are waiting now to see, will this develop into something bigger? Is this, are we missing it? Or are we actually seeing something come into power that the world has not seen at this scale before? Because all of the foundations, all of the groundwork has been laid. It's been laid through these forums, the W and the E forum, and then it's been laid by the organizations within the United Nations. It's been laid through years and years of work to destroy nations by watering them down by massive migration patterns. We have seen changes in regards to faith and belief systems. We have seen, and I talked about this in Shabbat during our Torah portion, we have seen how when one raises a flag, that flag is not just art. That flag is to establish sovereignty. It establishes the sovereignty of that nation's culture over the people. So when the United States lit up the White House in multiple colors, and from that point forward from 2016, it was establishing. This
is what rules.
This is what rules. And what have we seen? Our embassies around the world have flown this multicolored flag next to the United States flag, saying this is sovereign. This is the sovereignty of the United States. We have seen even some places where they will elevate that multicolored flag in place of the nation's flag.
But there are many other flags that are raised that are contrary.
So what I'm saying is that it's establishing a power and authority,
a principality
that's been allowed in to rule and to reign. And so it's been from classrooms to government buildings to places of influence. We have seen that take place. And what do we see in just a few weeks? We're going to have a whole month of that stuff again. And we couldn't wait to get rid of it last year.
And every year it's more out there.
But I want to say this. Remember Yeshua, and I started out talking about this earlier today. Talking about Yeshua confronted Hasatan. How did he confront? The way and the truth and the life spoke. And he spoke the word from the Torah. Now, it gives us that pattern and an understanding that even the kingdom of Hasatan is limited. Why do you have to have multiple covens around the world all working together in order to establish whatever they need to establish for the coronation of KC3? Is because they are limited in power. So it takes lots of multiple coordinations for them to do that. And in fact, when you look at the multiple coordinations, there are still infighting going on. It is not a fully united kingdom. Therefore, the kingdom of Hasatan is a limited kingdom. And
as we are as well.
And so
Yah's not, but his people are divided.
So we must be united in our faith because Yah is raising up a remnant, and we are that remnant. We have to understand that in John chapter 16, Yeshua talks about the Spirit of truth. How do we confront the lies and the deceptions and this coronation of deception that's been, to use that phrase? How do we confront it? With the Spirit of truth. How did Yeshua confront the spirit of deception after being in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights? He made declarations from the word with truth. And And what is it about the armor of God? That we gird ourselves with the belt of truth, armed with the sword of the Spirit. We have to know that behind that veil is a yes. Did something big take place? Was it something that we cannot handle by ourselves? Yeah, I'm going to say yes, because unless we've been given the authority to do this, but we can declare and decree the word of God so that it can break up and destroy and put harm to the kingdom of darkness. We do that as those here in the Hebrew roots. I know there's people out there that are believers that don't know about the Hebrew roots, but they sure declare and decree things in order to establish the kingdom of God upon the earth.
Our words have power, and when you quote Yah's word, even that much more. But our words have power. So what are we speaking?
Right. So we need to make sure that we begin to make these declarations, and we need to make sure that we're not only that we are blessing the assemblies, the believers, and not cursing them. We need to be praying that the blessing of God would be upon and would rise up upon the people of God to establish his kingdom upon this earth. We have not been put into a position of defeat because we see darkness rising. We have been put into a position of victory in order to ensure that darkness will not prevail. You know, that's why I go back. I always love going back to Isaiah. Is it Isaiah 60? Isaiah 60, 61? Let me go over there real quick and read this. Because when we see gross darkness rising in the earth,
the light should even be that much greater.
Then the glory rises up. It says, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of Yahweh has risen upon you. For behold, darkness will cover the earth, and deep darkness the peoples. Isn't that what's taking place? Deep darkness. What does it mean? It's because a spirit of delusion and deception has been released upon the people of the world. But it goes on, it says, but Yahweh will rise upon you, and his glory will appear upon you, and nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes round about and see, they will gather together, they come to you. And so what does that mean? We're establishing who we are because we are not fearful and draw back, but we are ones who actually understand our heritage, that light causes darkness to flee. Well, how do you do that? Well, I think a lot of times we need to go back to some of the heritages that we learned before we came into the heritage, the Hebraic heritage, and began to declare and decree and bless the ecclesia, the kahal, the assemblies of the Most High, and begin to bless them, speak that they will walk in a spirit of truth, that they will walk in a spirit of strength. They will not shrink and not fall back, but they will speak truth, and that they will be empowered by the Holy Spirit, that light will shine upon them, that they will carry that menorah of the seven spirits of God upon them and in their lives to wherever we go. And whatever we do has influence and dispels darkness and deception and delusions. Stop in its tracks. Do we not think that we are empowered? Isn't that what if the Spirit of the living God has been upon us, has he not given us a spirit of love, power, and a sound mind? Is that not how we're supposed to operate and work within? So yeah, I laid a lot of groundwork to get up to this certain point in time, is that we must face off with this great and grand delusion. You know, we can't say, well, I love the truth, so therefore now I can go to my bunker. Or do we say, no, we need to bring as many people with us? Because I'm telling you, I don't think it's supposed to be a small crowd at Mount Sinai in the great gathering in the wilderness.
It's a great gathering, but it's still a remnant. And I don't believe he's going to gather all the people. He's going to gather his bride, and his bride is a remnant.
And I think it's if we can do as much as we possibly can to gather as many that we can with us, we need to be a light. We need to bring encouragement. Some people won't come with us, but maybe we can be that thing that will help them in the days and hours to come. So anyway, there you go. There's some of my thoughts. Use it as you would.
And just
but
as a disclaimer, we're not saying that KC3 is anti-Messiah or anything else. We're saying lots of things have changed, and he did lots of things. There's been lots of things in the works.
we understand that what he is not what his mother was like, that he is bringing something more to the table we need to be alert and watch out for. So who he is, we will find out. We will find out in the near future. But that spirit of anti-Messiah is in the world, and John has said it's in the world, but it's increasing. So,
and just remember too, as we're getting ready to close, if you can bless Life of Worship and partner with us in any way, but right now finances is what we need, please do so. And we are so blessed to have you part of this family.
Yep. So until next time, this is John.
And this is Sandi. Shalom.
Shalom.